Hello and welcome to the Academic Center for Writing presentation on the haiku. This presentation was written and narrated by Jason Schneider, writing specialist in the ACW. Typically, the starting verses, or initial stanza, was omitted because it was viewed just as an icebreaker to give something for other poets to begin. A teacher or master poet would begin a ranga with a haiku. After a grand competition among poets, all competitors would come together in the manner of an after-party and have fun composing poetry together, the ultimate form of open mic. In a way, ranga was like a writing workshop among Eastern poets in early times. Think of a haiku as an introduction to an essay, whereas the haiku stands on its own without the rest of the essay. Since a haiku became a thing of its own, it was later called a haiku. For example, a haiku might begin with a traditional image such as a cherry blossom. Then in the second half, the haiku contrasts or presents an image that might clash with the first part of the haiku. The image of a long, hard rain falling is contrasted with a stationary position in the willows in a temperate climate. There is a sense of season from when life thrives in its youth, suggested by the adjective tender. Though we have stated that traditional haiku contrasts two images, a haiku's composition can compare two images. The image of a spring nap, as in someone sleeping under a tree, is compared to flowers in slumber on cherry trees, somewhere along downstream as a calm, resting revival before an awakening in the image of a bud. Similar to, but not a comparison of, an association of images can be composed together to signify unity or oneness. The image of a hand, as in a handful, is associated with a wing, as well as the association between an owl and moonlight, because both typically appear at night. In the association between these images, the movement of the night is emphasized, both the owl moving and the moon changing positions through the night. Another association can be made with the sound of O that occurs throughout the haiku, such as in moving, moonlight, and the owl's wing, to bond or unify the lines of the haiku. Composing a haiku in a way of sense switching uses more than one sensory organ. From Basho's haiku, the sight of an old pond is one sense of seeing, whereas a frog jumping evinces the sound of a plunk from another sense of hearing. The haiku scrambles the senses of seeing and hearing, but as the last line says, both the sight and sound of water are one. Having to switch from the sense of seeing to the sense of hearing is called synthesizing. Synesthesia. Though metaphors might not have been a traditional device to use in a composing of a haiku, Basho parted from other poets when he composed the lines for this haiku. The metaphor of a branch, implied as a thin branch, represents the feeling of anxiety as the crow, which is a fairly large black bird, being a blackbird, representing the night, lands heavily to cause a slight shudder along the branch. And the overall metaphor behind the autumn dusk represents arrival of night and the slight anxiety it causes because the daylight has left. Basho's last line captures the overall metaphor. Originated from the poet Busan, the first line is a wide-angled image, as to give the big picture, and the second line will provide an image normally seen from plain view. The third line shows an image near, as if the reader can see the object directly in front of their face. There are more ways to compose images within haiku, and this is not an exhaustive in any way. Telling the audience how we feel puts up walls and does not provide a path for the reader to connect with our emotions. Besides the composition of a haiku, it had to contain three elements: form, content, and language. Just one rendition of a modern haiku, it had 3 lines, but no rules as to how many syllables it must contain. However, just as a haiku contains simple language, its modern rendition does too. Between Basho and Kerouac, we find that both poems have 3 lines in form, what is sensed in content, and simple language. Other modern haiku share similar elements to that of traditional haiku. Though it seems that Ezra Pound departs from form and composition, he juxtaposes 2 images of faces and petals explicitly and leaves the relationship between these 2 images implicit. Tanka departs from haiku in that it has 5 lines rather than 3 lines, expresses moods instead of the nature of how things are, and contains metaphors in contrast to simple language found in haiku. Furthermore, Senryu contrasts from haiku in that it concentrates on human nature without using Mother Nature to address it. Ringa does not need to address the setting, a time and place concerning content, and it contains several stanzas of that of a 3-line haiku to comprise a lengthy poem in contrast to the short 3-lined haiku by itself. Notice that the tanka by Tsaura Yuki has 5 lines, expresses a mood of longing and metaphor river wind and personification of plovers that would not be found in a haiku. In this poem of a Senryu, notice that human nature is directly addressed about a crush long ago, just recently known without using any of Mother Nature. Thanks for watching. For questions about this or any other writing topic, come and visit the Academic Center for Writing in room W114. Thanks again.